Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I'm your host, Jacob Shorba, and we're here to recap Week 9 where, man, this was just a weird game. I don't know what other way to put it. But the Jaguars ultimately, come back from a 22-0 deficit, nearly win this game. I mean, they're down in the red zone at the end with a chance to take the lead. The Eagles offense reeling, and ultimately aren't able to because of what ends up being a bad throw. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, this has generally been an issue when the team's really bad. It's hard to really know what to talk about when you see the same thing every week. This was just a weird game. I don't understand what was going on half the time, especially even from the Eagles side of things and the ridiculous decision-making that they were making throughout this game. Having an opportunity to go up 2 possessions and not kicking the field goal. I mean, it was like watching the Jaguars play the Jaguars. That's what this game really felt like. But ultimately, it's a mix of a lot of things, right? Because you've got the poor coaching, you've got the lack of volume on offense, you've got a ton of injuries, and you've got a team that just, even against what seemed like one of the worst coached teams I've ever watched, still was not able to outcoach them enough, was not able to put their players in great positions. And then you got the weird stuff, like the Trayvon Walker fumble recovery for a touchdown, which was, I don't know what I think of that. I mean, look, great effort from Trayvon Walker. I want to say that first, right? Nothing against him at all on the play. It was a phenomenal return by him, running through blockers and the offensive players that were still on the field, scoring on that and not just letting it be a dead ball and returning it, right? And it paid off because it ended up actually being a fumble. But it's just a weird play because it's like Saquon goes down to the ground. It's caused by the ground. You can't have fumbles caused by the ground, but no one touched it. And so it's just this bizarre technicality that leads to a score after Jacksonville was getting blown out the whole game, looked like a joke, was playing incredibly poorly. You had the Saquon Barkley backwards hurdle over the defense. This team was embarrassing himself at the start of this game. And then suddenly you get what seemed like a garbage time touchdown, even though technically it's the 3-possession game, goes to 2 when you score, followed by the Trayvon Walker fumble recovery for a touchdown. And suddenly it's a game. Just a really weird game. That's the simple way of putting this. But we are going to look through the performances in this matchup. Now, it's worth noting that Trevor Lawrence, once again, and we've seen this a lot of times this year, he's getting a lot of his volume late in games, just starting slow, not getting a whole lot. And I'm not going to blame that all on him because he's working with what's not really an ideal group of receivers. I think like Brian Thomas Jr. is phenomenal. Evan Ingram's phenomenal to have. Those are really good players. But Parker Washington, as much as we like him, he's not an established veteran or a player who's used to starting. He did fine today, but not someone I would consider as like a really good starter right now. And then Austin Trammell, this is maybe his first start in his career. I know he hasn't really played with the Jaguars much. I think this is the first time he's been active for an actual game. So, it's not ideal working with this, and I get that, but, kind of the same thing again with Trevor Lawrence. The slow starts to the game, you can blame it on a lot of different things. It's just hard to get a read on the things you need to get a read on when there's so many problems, right? And you have no one who's really sitting here devoid of being a part of the problem. Everyone's got their bit in it. So, 16-31, this looks better than what it was originally, but he was like 4 of 11 for 23 yards, I think, in the middle of the third. So, that's obviously not ideal. And then you got the 2 interceptions. The one with Travis Etienne, not his fault. Etienne gets a fine throw, ends up bobbling it straight to a defender. His trade value probably went straight down to a 7th after that play. And then the second one, that was on Trevor Lawrence. The one at the end of the game, not a good throw. You're throwing to a running back, first of all, and you weren't accurate with the throw. And it ends up going over him. It goes to the defender, and that's game, right? it just seems like this team makes a lot of silly mistakes like that. Whether it's Trevor Lawrence or a different player, they're not coached well, right? Are we shocked by that? No. This is a very poorly coached team. You look at the run game. I mean, what the hell are we doing, guys? Like, how many carries do we got here? 18 carries for, let's count this. This is 46, 54. Yeah, 60 yards. 18 carries for 60 yards. I mean, that's not much, right? Your leading rusher had 24 yards on the ground and he got the ball 3 times. Just nothing there, right? Rushing game wasn't good. The passing game wasn't good until the very end when things just sort of randomly broke open. And then as far as the offensive line, we'll take a look at some of these PFF grades that we've got. And this will get updated. There'll be like a final look at it tomorrow. So some of these might change, but this is the initial grades. You got Walker Little as your best pass blocker in this game. I mean, you could debate that, I guess. Anton Harrison playing fine. I guess Luke Fortner came in for a snap. Brandon Scherf, having an okay game, but something you see here, run blocking grade's not that great. Cooper Hodges, he's been fine at that. It's something that we liked about him. Ends up going down with a bad injury, though. I think he broke his leg, was what I heard. Don't quote me on that. Go look it up for yourself. But that was what I had heard earlier, at least a rumor of that. So that's a really big loss for this team, especially with Ezra Cleveland already hurt. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. But that's what you got from your offensive line. Nothing incredible, nothing terrible necessarily, but just kind of the same old, we'll call it. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, really good day for Josh Allen getting 2 sacks in this game. Jordan Jefferson even got one. I'm not sure if that's his first. He might actually have another sack in his career because I know he's been playing a decent amount and has been a little more involved than I expected. Because honestly, he's not really a player we talked about a whole lot. Maybe that'll change if he's playing well, right? And that's the hope. But really good day for Josh Allen. Trayvon Walker obviously had the awesome return for a touchdown. That was a great play. Makes you almost want to test them out at running back in like the goal line formations, given they can't get a yard any other way other than quarterback sneaking, which they only do like once every 8 games, it seems like. For some reason, they just can't do it because it works too well. But that's just the way they operate. Ventrell Miller, I'm not sure what his grade was on the defense side of the ball. Should be, actually. Yeah, pretty high. Run defense, man. Dude, he's a good run defender. He's having an impact there. He's physical. Something you love to see from him. But yeah, you see your defensive grades here. I think it was a good day for a lot of the front 7 guys, ultimately. And, they didn't play that terrible, but you got to go back to it's kind of the same thing that we've seen in a lot of these games. When they need to stop, they're not always getting to stop, right? And they were finally able to at the end of this game after letting the Eagles go up with the Devonta Smith touchdown. But you just wish they did a little bit more at the end of that game. I mean, 28 points is a good amount to be giving up. It's not ideal, but I'm not going to trash them too much, right? It's a solid performance. Andre Sisco came close to having an interception, ended up hitting the ground, but other than that, I'm not sure there's anything else I would really note. And I'll say this, guys, there's probably going to be some things I missed in this review because this was just such an obnoxious game. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, okay, one last thing I'll note. I know there was an early special teams blunder by this team, gave the Eagles a free score. It's a lot of these simple mistakes that really bite them in the ass. And you thought they might get out of it today because you got the other team doing the same stuff. You're up 6 points. You can kick a field goal, go up 2 possessions, and the Eagles go for it on 4th and inches, not by running the ball up the middle, but by trying a pass. And you got Jalen Hurts, running back like 20 yards from the line of scrimmage trying to find someone. Just stupid stuff like that. I mean, this, like I said, this game felt like the Jaguars playing the Jaguars. And ultimately, the Jaguars lost as usual. So, kind of my thoughts on that. We'll see if Tankathon's updated, because this is unfortunately something we're going to have to look at. And look at that. Jacksonville is the 2nd overall pick right now in the NFL draft. Isn't that just peachy, right? I don't even know what to say about it. I thought this team would not be that great this year. I thought they'd struggle. I thought it would be disappointing. Never in my life did I think they were going to be 2-7 after week 9. I never would have said that. I would have thought maybe like 4-5 at worst. But here we are. 2-7. You're tied for the first overall pick. The way they're playing right now, man, this team might collapse. And if they do, you might be picking first overall for all we know. But there's a lot of other teams that suck right now. I mean, you see the amount of guys tied for 2-7 for the first overall pick. You go through 7 teams here, right? You got Miami and Tennessee at 8-9. They're only behind because they've got one less loss. They've had the bye week. It says a lot about where we are right now in the NFL with some of these teams and how poor they're playing, and Jacksonville has no business being among them. Now, I think it'll be interesting to wake up tomorrow morning and look on Twitter, because I feel like there's a little bit of a chance that this might be the week where Doug Peterson gets fired. This team is clearly just so far out of things. It's not going to make the playoffs. They would have to go on, at this point, a bigger run than what they did in 2022, because their worst point that year was 3-7, right? And technically, they could get to 3-7 winning next week, but I don't know. I mean, from this point on, they were 3-6 going into the Chiefs game in week 10, hadn't had the bye, so we are technically worse than what they were in 2022 at this point. It says a lot about the regression of this team. So, my last thing I'll say here, we might talk about this more in depth on their video. I know a lot of people are going to be very frustrated from this game. A lot of people probably very confused as well. Ultimately, as far as Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke and their futures with this team and the anxiety of just like, are they going to get fired? I want to tell you guys, as much as you might be scared that the Jaguars will not do anything and that they will somehow find a way to F this up and just keep the guys around, just have patience, right? I think this is ultimately a matter of when it's going to happen rather than if it's going to happen. If you follow E. Dilla on Twitter, he's our Jaguars insider. It's a lot of the stuff he's saying lines up with that, where these guys are really dead men walking at this point. And for Shad Khan, as much as you could sit here and say these guys have no business being in the NFL, leading these teams, and being in the position they are, what advantage are you getting firing them right now? I think with Trent Baalke, and you could argue some sort of advantage. My point is I don't think it's going to be as big as you think, because once we get past the trade deadline, once we get past Tuesday, what is Trent Baalke really doing at that point? If he's fired the next week versus the end of the season, what's the difference? Because you're not trading. You're probably not signing extensions with this team. Who the hell would you sign? So there's nothing he's going to be doing with this team. So with Trent Baalke, it's sort of like you fire him tomorrow or you wait until the end of the year, because it doesn't really matter. With Doug Peterson, you could argue this team might be more functional if he sticks around. You might argue that they get better if he doesn't stick around. And if you want this team to tank and you want them to have a high pick, which I'm going to be fair to you guys, I think that's fine to root for at this point. If the season's over, you want what's best for the future, right? And at the end of the day, it's about wanting the Jaguars to win more often. And if it helps them to win more often by sucking more this year in a season that is over, okay, I'll accept that, right? That's okay. You don't want to build a losing culture, but at this point, that's what you have. You're not really fixing that with the group of guys that are here right now. That's what's going to be done in the offseason and beyond. And it needs to be done, right? But that's just where I'm at on it. If they lose from this point on, it is what it is. If they win, cool. It doesn't really mean anything. So with Doug Peterson, you could kind of argue both ways. Is it really going to do anything to fire him right now? Do you have someone in the building that you want to give a head coaching? I don't think so. Maybe this offseason you was said Ryan Nielsen. Surely there was talk about that. But at the end of the day, what has he done this year? He hasn't been good for Jacksonville. He's been rotating players in and out nonstop. his defense collapses late in games, although today at least they did get the final stop and gave them a chance. But ultimately, he hasn't done anything to earn that. So it's a situation where I think we're going to be frustrated with how long this goes. And it would be nice to get the assurance that they will be fired with it happening now. And while I would prefer they were fired now, I'll just say this. Don't worry about too much. It's going to happen. It's just not something that I think they're going to have to be super urgent on, or it's going to play a huge role in the future, because it sounds like they're already preparing for the future. We've heard from E. Dilla as well, if you follow him at all, that they're already getting in contact with representatives for head coaching candidates. And they're being told by these people that they will not work with Trent Baalke. Do you think they're going to keep Trent Baalke if they can't hire a coach? Absolutely not. It's over for him. It's over for Doug. It's over for this leadership, and things are going to change eventually. Like I said, it's just a matter of when it happens. So that's all we've got here. What a weird day. That's all I can say. Just crazy with daylight savings ending, getting pushed back an hour, and then the afternoon game that comes at 3 usually isn't that time. I guess it'd be 4 for most of you, and then just the ridiculousness of the game. It's been a weird day, and I'm gonna be happy to forget about a lot of this, to be honest. But hey, I appreciate y'all watching. Want to shout out our channel members: Premier Nasir 904, Mr. Dolphin, Scrubber Ducky 500, and Brian Foster for supporting the channel. If you guys want to do that, you can see all the information here, and feel free to ask if you have any questions. But that's all I've got. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next one. So go Jags.